my screens. So does everybody have, before we get started, does everybody have some sort of paper and a pen or a pencil? So you're not like having to take notes on your, okay. Because during the course of this, there's gonna be several points where there are writing prompts. They're not gonna be super long. They're just like 1 sentence quick prompts, and most of the answers can be 1 sentence quick answers. But you do wanna have something that you're able to write on freely, enough space to kind of scribble and jot or whatever you want. And then did everybody get the little package that got sent out ahead of time? You've probably got a little pocket-sized journal and a funky little bottle that we'll use at the end. And if not, don't worry about it.
It's on demand.
Yeah, I got it.
I've been given the heads up.
Okay,
yeah,
well,
you're coming.
And you don't need to worry about having it. It's not a big deal if you don't have it in.
My owl is really old. She doesn't fly as fast as.
Exactly. So the journals, the little pocket-sized journal is just because I don't think there is any such thing as having too many places to write down great ideas. So I use these all over the place. I've got them in the glove box of my car, my end table next to the bed, here in the room where I do work on my desk. I start new little notebooks for different projects. If I start a new book or I start a new blog series or something, I'm always using lots of notebooks. And I think that pocket size is fantastic. I stick one in my hip pocket. I'm going to meet somebody for lunch. If I get there 10 minutes early, I'm always jotting stuff down. So I don't think there's any such thing as having too many easy to carry, stick in your pocket type notebooks. So that doesn't need to be the paper you're working with tonight, and it can be. So again, thank you so much for being here, for making time for this, for having something about this topic, writing to inspire others, speak to you, so that somehow you want to speak to other people in a way that has you show up in a strong, positive way for other people. So I'm gonna have a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation. And so I'm mostly gonna be off screen. Hopefully it'll show up on your screen easily, and we'll go through stuff, and the writing prompts will come through there and stuff, and we'll share all that together. So I'm gonna see if I can happen easily. And we'll jump in. Does anybody have any questions before I start?
Yeah, so we said we should be using the. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Baby bear.
Should we be using this the notebook, the little journal book? Should be writing notes and everything? Is that what?
You can any paper, and the little journal doesn't have to be what you're using.
Okay.
And then if you do have any questions during the course of things, feel free to unmute yourself and let me know, because with the PowerPoint on my screen, I'm not going to be able to see you if you're kind of raising your hand or something. So feel free to unmute yourself. Other than that, if you've got background noise and stuff and you're able to mute, that's cool. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen. Thank you, a couple of people that just popped in. Tell me if you can see my screen.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna, and tell me if now you just see the main slide and not the side slides. Is that correct?
Main slide.
Okay. Awesome. Perfect. Okay. So writing to inspire others, which I subtitled "Creating Kindness and Uplifting Content in a Rough World." So it's a little bit of a rough world these days, and the shortcut for people is to go to negative. A lot of people, the shortcut is going to negative. So the fact that you are, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you?
Or expecting negative when you're trying to create and express,
Yep.
Like that's the back of the mind is like, I can't do that. But continue though, sorry.
Absolutely. And we've got more places to express what comes quick to mind than we used to, because of social media and stuff. It just gives us direct publication, and I'll talk about that in a second. But everybody's a published writer now. It used to be you had to have a book contract or you had to have a job in a newspaper in order to have an audience read your words, and now you just have to have a phone and a social media account, and you're published. You're a published author. People can search your words. Your Facebook post can be searched online.
It's defined published,
Instagram,
like this public?
Any of that stuff can be searched online.
Oh, wow, interesting.
So you're published. Every time you post something, you're a published author, and that's kind of a big responsibility if you choose to take it on as a big responsibility. So I suggest that we can address writing in a whole lot of different ways. And what I want to talk about tonight is really thinking of writing as an act of kindness, as an act of generosity. When you think about the language we use when we talk about artists, and writers, of course, are artists, as a musician, you give a concert, right? So that's, you give. The word, the operative word there is you give a concert. An actor gives a performance. It's an act of generosity that you put your art out into the world. And so the minute that you put a pen or pencil to the page or your fingers to a keyboard, you are, of course, an artist as well. You're an inventor, you're a conjurer, you make things come into the world with your words. And when you decide to make that step over the threshold to let other people's eyes and hearts see and read your words, you are generating generosity. I love that phrase, generating generosity. You're in the act of giving. So you get to choose what you're going to give. And it's easy to go negative. It's easy to respond back. Sometimes our humor is a little negative. It's a little kind of funky or sarcastic or snarky, and that's fine. That's no problem. You can actually be super inspiring and be sarcastic and snarky. But it really is just a mindset, and it's a mindset that you just can choose to recommit yourself to pretty much every day, over and over again. And you don't have to do it every day. You don't have to put positivity out in the world every day, but I suggest the world's a little better when you do, when you put a little something extra out into the world. But you're not always going to be in the mood. Sometimes you want to be sarcastic. Sometimes you want to respond to somebody's thing and kind of get into a tit for tat thing. And you can choose to do that, but you don't have to. You could choose to just not respond publicly. And on days that you don't feel like putting positivity out in the world, don't. You'll feel better the next day. Things, you know, everything kind of ebbs and flows, but you can take responsibility for what you do put out there in the world as a published author, which you are every time you put stuff out that other people get to see. So there's a concept that is my very favorite concept from Buddhist practice. And it's called Tonglen. And it kind of sums this up. It's a little esoteric, so hang with me on this. It sums up what I think the energy of writing to inspire people can be for. Okay, so it's a Buddhist practice specifically to awaken compassion. And what you do is you think of someone. It can be someone you know. It doesn't have to be. It can be somebody you don't know. It could be a family member, a friend, someone far away, someone nearby. They don't need to be in the same room with you. They could be on the other side of the world. But you think of someone who is in a situation that they wish they weren't. They're in pain. They're in fear. They're in a negative space. And you can center yourself, close your eyes, visualize the pain of that person. Not all of it. You don't know all of it. You don't get to know their whole story, but somebody else's pain or discomfort or fear. And with every in-breath that you take some of that pain, you slice some off the top and you lighten their load and you breathe it into yourself. And it's not your pain, so it's not going to stick to you. There's no residue for you. It's not yours. So you're a filter and you take it into yourself and then you breathe it out with intention back to them having been cleaned. None of the negativity sticks to you. None of it burdens you, but it in fact liberates you because you filtered the energy for someone else. And you can't take all their pain, but you just transmit it and transmute it by the fact that it has passed through you. The writing prompt, the most effective ways I know to relieve my own pain are, and we're just gonna, couple 2-3 minutes, jot stuff down. That doesn't have to be complete sentences, it can be just some few words. Some people have very specific practices. Some people have ways that they escape or shift energy. And you can always come back to these. We're going to scoot forward. These are for you at the end if people want to share some of the things that they've written, but I'm not going to call on you and pinpoint you to share your writing on these writing prompts, because some of them are very personal. And if you feel like sharing at the end, we can certainly kind of work our way into that if that feels like something that everybody's in the space for. So one of the things that sort of happens in society, and we talked about it kind of with the online concept, but this happens in real life too, you know, IRL. It is very easy for us to be negative. In our culture, we have gotten quite used to bonding over the bad stuff. It doesn't have to be bad tragic. It just tends to be the stuff that we find commonality with people about. And this can be super simple. Think about standing in line at the grocery store and you wish they would open another register and there's several people in line. They're not people that you know. And you turn to somebody and the things that people talk about is like, oh, can you believe how slow this line is? Can you believe, I can't believe they're not opening another register. Like you just kind of connect on bitching and you connect on complaining, and you don't connect on the fact that you're going to make an amazing dinner and you can't wait to get home to start cooking your meal. What I would build into these examples and these slides is that this is coming from the place of a writer. So the way that we connect with other people as a writer, and I'm using that example of the grocery store, but we tend to find that the shortest road to connection is complaints that we have in common.
Gotcha.
It's not the positivity that we have in common. And it's just sort of the human default, and social sciences will have done lots of studies on that. People just connect on that stuff because we assume that we have the bad stuff in common, and it's not vulnerable to complain about stuff. So that's different than pain. But it's not vulnerable to complain about stuff. So the next writing prompt, something amazing I probably have in common with others. You don't necessarily have to know you have it in common, but something amazing, something that lights you up that you suspect you have in common with others. And this can be many amazing things you think you have in common with others. So I suggest that you're writing whatever that is. It can be a book, it can be a website, it can be a blog, it can be magazine articles, newspaper articles, social media posts, poetry, songs, anything. I suggest that your writing can be, if you choose for it to be, a love note to the world. This is one of my favorite quotes from Maya Angelou and one of my favorite photos of Maya Angelou from Sesame Street. You've probably heard this quote before. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And the fact of the matter is, you can be the thing that changes somebody's day or week or month or life. You can be the person at cause for a positive change in somebody's life. You have that power. You've probably done it times that you weren't even aware you were doing it by who you were being in the world. I can almost guarantee that every person on this screen has done that before, and you may not even know. And it can be strangers, it can be loved ones, but you have changed people's lives for the better. I promise that you have, and you're going to do a lot more of it. And when you when you intentionally decide that you're going to send love notes out into the world in whatever format that writing is, you are adding to the net positive good for the world. So here's another quick writing prompt. A thing I am committed to helping emerge in the world is. Most of these prompts are just little teasers that you can go back to and hopefully have too much to write about and fill the page and overfill the page and overflow. So I say that your writing can be a way of being of service. It can be of service to other people. We all have the connection of the Elise Ann Rich Burn Foundation. It's an organization that's totally guided by heart. It's driven by volunteers. There's a phrase that's used around the office that the Burn Foundation is volunteer run and staff supported. It's all about the volunteering. It's all about being of service. There's no way that any of the services that we provide could be done without volunteers. It's a huge ethos of the organization that we all have in common that brought us here to this. And any kind of volunteering or being of service to other people, when you're of service, you probably already know this. I know several of you are volunteers and have volunteered. And if you haven't yet, of course, there's always opportunities at the Burn Foundation and a gazillion other places. But we know that when we are of service, when we volunteer for other people, we're the ones who get the most out of it. The volunteers get much more than the people for whom we volunteer, the recipients of our work. We get our life out of it as volunteers. It's why we keep doing it. It's why people they bend over backwards to do the programs and stuff as volunteers. It's one of my favorite quotes from Dr. Martin Luther King. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? So tonight we're looking at ways that our writing can be of service to others, as a gift to others. Which brings us to the next quick prompt, which is a two-sider, two-piece. This is how I feel when I give love but don't get it back. And this is how I feel when my love is returned and reciprocated in greater measure than I'd hoped. So finding common ground. When you decide that you're going to create your art, your writing as an act of generosity for other people, the thing that you probably want to find is the universality of your message and the universality of your voice. So human beings, again, more social science, human beings are one of our greatest human needs is to know that we are seen, to know that we are heard, and to know that our existence is acknowledged. Tremendously difficult world when you feel like nobody's paying attention, nobody notices, nobody cares if you're there. So that is truly one of our greatest driving forces in all cultures. One of our greatest driving forces is the need to be seen, to be heard, and to be acknowledged. And it really is the beauty of empathy. It's feeling with people. It's being in a space together because you have things in common. And as a theory of social evolution, we as human beings, and again, this is cross cultures all around the world, we look for ways that we can be reflected in others. We're looking for what we have in common. Think about your first day of school, your first day at camp, your first day at a new job, when you are brand new and you have no idea what to expect. You might have lost sleep the night before. You might have been freaked out about the traffic and you're running late and you're worried about what you wore or what you chose to wear or what you should have worn instead of what you wore. And you're just so overwhelmed and in your own head about anticipation of the unknown. And you come into a space where there are other people and you instantly, you might not even know that you're doing it. Sometimes you're doing it consciously, but you might not even know you're doing it. You're seeking commonality and you're looking at faces and people and trying to find which one's gonna not hurt me, which one's gonna accept me, which one's gonna welcome me, who here is enemy, who here is friend. And it's been since the dawn of time, since human relations, we always look for, in new situations and new interactions with other humans, is this friend or foe? Is this someone who's going to hurt me? Is this someone who's going to help me? So we always look for the commonality with others. We look for ways that helps us fit in. We're looking for the me-shaped hole that I get to fill in the society that I'm stepping into. And even when we don't know that we're doing it, it's a very automatic response that happens in our heart. So if your writing makes someone recognize themselves, to have their own aha moment, it's gold. It's magic. So you're always wanting to look for that common ground. And you can write the most wild, out there fiction, nonfiction, things that are, other planets and other species and all kinds of things. You can still find the place where people reflect or find themselves reflected and find the commonality in your writing. So the next prompt, I know my work and my words are resonating when these things happen. What do you see in other people, in an audience, in readership, on social media? What do you see or hear or recognize or notice when you know your work is landing? But what kind of reaction do you notice? Okay. Know a little bit about vulnerability. So vulnerability is the least obstructed connection to other people. So when we were just talking about people looking for commonality, allowing yourself as the creator to be vulnerable allows the reader, the audience, to find themselves reflected in a safe space and in a safe way. So I love this thing. You've probably seen this meme all over social media. Normalize telling people you love them, tell them a lot, make it weird. It's something we do at the Burn Foundation a lot.
Love you, bro.
And it's an awesome way to go through life. Because being open is a gift to other people. It truly is an act of generosity. We don't always have the energy for it, but when we do, we're giving something to the world. And I would suggest that sometimes when we feel like we don't have the energy to be open, the act of being open gives us the energy that we think we're lacking in the moment. Because we all share a need for safety. We all share that we're afraid to admit what's weak, scary, or overwhelming. So if you can just, when you find yourself putting up walls, shutting down, pulling away, I do it. I internally, and when I was a kid, I did it externally. I complained about being tired. I would yawn. I wasn't necessarily tired, but it was my way of putting up walls. I would yawn, and somehow that made me think I was too cool or cooler than the people in the room or the situation, and it helped me kind of distance myself. We all have actions that we take that give us distance because we're seeking comfort, because we're afraid to be open and vulnerable. I didn't realize that till I was much older. I was like, oh yeah, I used to yawn all the time, and it wasn't because I was tired. I was also tired a lot, but that wasn't what that yawning thing was about. It was my way of putting up walls. So if you can choose to be open, if you recognize behaviors that you have that are, and it happens very naturally, we start to protect ourselves a little bit because we're feeling a little funky, or we haven't had enough water, or we haven't enough food, or whatever. If you choose to chip away at those walls, you're making the world better. So this prompt, I'm not afraid to say that I'm afraid of. And you might reframe that. I'm going to choose not to be afraid to say I'm afraid of, even if you are a little afraid of it. So we've been talking super conceptually. Now I want to talk a little bit about sort of writing itself. So I call these buckets. So these are the types of writing that tend to be in the world of inspiring others, or that can be positive, net positive for the world. So inspirational writing can be, motivational books, the calendars that have quotes, collections of quotes, all that kind of stuff that inspires people to do something for themselves, or just inspires a good mood, or inspires them to feel better or feel good. There's also devotional and spiritual, which is a very specific category. Some might say it's a subcategory of inspirational writing, which can be for your particular spiritual faith or just general spirituality, but it's specifically devotional and spiritual writing. There's the kind of writing that's instructional. It's coaching, it's mentoring, it's teaching. It's taking responsibility to move someone from one space into a further space of learning, into helping them understand something. So you take the role of teacher or mentor as the writer. Situational or shared circumstances. Often this comes up in fiction. Characters that become recognizable or relatable, the every man, every woman character that somebody sees themselves in. Often it's the main character. Sometimes we see ourselves in villains. This also can happen in essays, in personal essays, in memoir, people writing about their own life. So shared circumstances, something that you share with the audience. Burn survivors have something in common. There's shared circumstances. People write about aging. So with the audience writing about aging, they have it in common. People write about new parents. Mommy bloggers write about being new parents. They have something in common. People write about starting over. You got fired or you quit for your job and you're starting over and turning a page in your life. So that kind of writing really resonates with people because you have shared circumstance with the audience. Of course, there's poetry and song lyrics, which can go off into all kinds of different directions, but poetry and lyrics, which tend to be much briefer ways of grabbing emotion and thought and concepts. There's writing for children, which has tons of different versions. There's everything from the little thick page board books that sometimes have a little puffball in the middle, which are mostly pictures. Maybe there's a few words or learning alphabet, up through the layers of picture book, early reader, chapter books, middle grade, young adult, and new adult. And those can be fiction or nonfiction, biography, historical biography, stuff like that, but writing specifically toward an audience of younger people. There's our social posts, our social media, our posts, the memes that we create, the quotes that we grab. And there's also the things that we share, especially on social. That is your own version of publishing, whether you comment on it or not. If you share or you just hit share or hit retweet or something like that, that is a form of putting work out there, whether it's your original work or not. And of course, there's direct one-to-one writing, letters, notes, texts. Again, love notes to the world, but those can be love notes or not love notes, specific notes to other people, individuals. So think about this. 5 people that you say you're going to reach out to in the next 7 days, just to say you're thinking of. It doesn't have to be somebody you haven't reached out to in a long, long time. It's gorgeous if it is. But 5 people that you're going to reach out to within the next 7 days, between now and next Thursday, just to say you're thinking of them. It could be a text, it could be a note, it could be an email, it could be an actual letter. And of course, it can be more than 5. I'm a big fan of having 5 a week, every week. Another couple moments on that. So when you're writing with an intention to inspire others with an intention to give the gift of your work to other people, the real beauty and the real joy of it is shared discovery. When you come to it with energy, and this can be, you know, like Kenya, you write scripts for amazing work that you put on YouTube, but it's I believe, I assume much of it's scripted, even if some of it's improvised. You know, it doesn't have, this doesn't have to be essays or blogs. This is coming to people with whatever your form of writing is. But when you come from a space of, hey, look what I just found out, or I bet you didn't know, or that thing that gets used a lot in social media, I was today years old when I learned, or when I discovered, or here's something I learned that I bet you would want to know too, and make your life easier, the life hacks, the advice, that kind of energy, even if it's not those specific things, it doesn't have to be life hacks, it could be a 700-page novel, but it's coming from that space of, I think you want to know this too. I know this, and I think you want to know this too. And if you can get somebody to say, no way, as a discovery, they're already with you. You've got them in the palm of your hand, in the first page, the first opening, whatever it is that you're writing. But when you come to your writing with the intention to, on this photo, go through the cave and open up to a new horizon with your reader, you bring them on however long a journey you're set in front of them. Simple prompt, even if you don't have, you may not be able to think of something word for word, my favorite saying or quote that always gets me thinking. You can jot it down. Oh, it's that thing that that person said. Or if you know it, some people really have, they use them almost like mantras. They say them to themselves over and over again, or they have them on a Post-it note on their bathroom mirror, or on the fridge, or on their computer, or their screensaver, or something like that. Your favorite saying or quote that always gets you thinking. One of the amazing things that you can do as an artist, as a writer, especially if you start to tank out on ideas, if you've told yourself you're going to produce work at a certain pace, and then you get a little writer's block, or you get exhausted, or your idea changed halfway through, and now you don't know how to get it back on track, or maybe it's a whole different idea and you get a little lost in your stuff, is to think about collaborating. There's a beautiful opportunity as writers to work together to reach more people. Other writers have audiences and people already. Some of that can happen on social media. You can retweet, you can repost things of other people. It expands their reach and it expands your reach. Social media is actually built with algorithms to do that. Things that are shared, liked, and commented on all of the social media platforms within the first 30 seconds reach a wider audience. You might have 500 friends, but you're only reaching 45 people probably with a post, unless somebody reacts to it. And the quicker they react to it, the wider your audience goes to. And that's built into the computers, that's built into the AI, into those programs on social media. You can also do guest posting and content swapping. You can be like, oh, you know what? Baby Bear and I are going to take over each other's accounts for a day. I'm going to post on his account, he's going to post on my account, and swap and post on behalf of each other and show up, like announce that to people who are reading, or on blogs, or on your YouTube channel. It really infuses, just somebody else's perspective infuses your energy as a writer. So it's really great when you're feeling a little bit stuck. And it's also not lonely. Writing can be super lonely, and it's not lonely when you collaborate. And then, of course, there's a possibility of co-writing projects. You can co-write scripts, movies and plays and TV shows. You can co-write books. You can co-write articles. You can co-write all sorts of stuff. And just bounce ideas back and forth with people. Finding collaboration is a beautiful way to energize your work, because human nature, sometimes the tank gets empty. It's just a listing of places that your work lands. In case some of these are categories you hadn't thought about, like, oh yeah, wait, there's that. So books and anthologies being a collection of a bunch of different writers, magazines and journals, that probably also includes newspapers, blogs and websites. Anybody can start a blog tonight if they want to for free. You can start your own website tonight for free. There's easy platforms to get online and create writing for people so that audiences can find you and you can build a following. Stage plays, screenplays, TV shows. There's both scripted and unscripted, which tends to be scripted anyway, like Bachelor and stuff like that. That's all totally scripted. Card decks are very popular these days. A lot of inspiration, gratitude, decks, stuff like that. Advertising work and advertorial work. Advertorial is the things that look like articles in a magazine, but they're actually paid for by a sponsor. Like, oh, a trip to Italy, and it's actually paid for by the Italy Tourism Board. So advertising and advertorial is a place where a lot of writing shows up, and sometimes really great writing. We think of ads as being kind of throwaway stuff, but it can be really great writing. Ghostwriting, taking on a project for someone else, helping them get their voice out. Songwriting, of course, poetry, which has so many different forms. Gaming and story-driven venues. There's so much VR right now, and there are scripts and there's character development and a lot of those, and situational development and world building, which is all writing. There's a lot of different places that your work can land. There's the professional route. If you decide that you want to get into this space professionally. And I'm going to send you all after this, or I'll send it to Bubbles and she'll send it to you all, both this presentation as well as an outline that has a bunch of notes. And there's a whole resource section that I'm not going to bother you with during the slideshow. That's got places you can get started. You can start submitting essays right away to books and self-publishing and all those kinds of things. So if you decide to go the professional route, there's something called submission ready. So that just means your work is proofread. It is completely free of spelling and grammar errors. It's ready for an editor or a publisher to receive it and consider it for whatever their venue is. So that tends to be for books, magazines, digital websites and stuff, and newspapers. The professional standard, if you're submitting a story or a story idea or a pitch, is a Word document. Everybody has Word. Not everybody is using Google Docs. Not everybody is using Pages, but everybody uses Word. So that's at least in the professional writing industry, so that in the publishing industry. So you would use a Word document. Unless you're writing a screenplay, you're probably using Final Draft, which is a paid program that formats scripts in script form. If you're looking for who you want to send your work to because you're ready to reach an audience of people you don't know, on websites for publications, you're going to look for words like submission. You're going to look for write for us, contribute, or guidelines. And guidelines will tell you exactly what they're looking for and how they want things formatted. And sometimes you'll find that in the footer of a website, down at the very bottom of a page. It'll have, it tends to be where the tiny small print is. You might have to scroll way down to get down to the bottom, but in the footer, we'll have some of those like links to the guidelines page or links to About Us, where they'll have guidelines, or Write for Us or something like that. Or also, almost every web page has an About Us section. Almost every web page also has a contact section, so you can find out the right person to send things to and what exactly they want or need from you so that you fit the voice of their publication, book, magazine, website, anything like that. And if you want to go the professional route, I have a whole bunch of resources for you. There's also a section for, this is good for digital publishing, whether you're publishing your own ebooks, whether you're publishing your own website, whether you're using it for social media. There's a section for, I've got like 5 or 6 places where you can get high-res, royalty-free photos that you can use for free. There's several websites there. You can find amazing photographs. There's tens of thousands of photographs you can get. They're all done by professionals. There's meme generator apps that I put in the resource section for you to find if you want to start generating the memes with text as opposed to just doing it in your phone. You can do things a little more professional because each platform has different sizes and needs. So a lot of those resources of how to sort of create your own art, your post, how to add text, how to do book covers if you're self-publishing, and also some links to get you started to think about self-publishing if you want to do that. I'm going to scoot to the last thing with the little bottles that you have. So tear off a strip of paper that's 1 inch or less wide or high.
Oh, a bottle.
It doesn't have to be long. And I just want you to write down on that piece of paper. It just needs to be one word. It could be a phrase, but you just want it to be one word. The word I want others to conjure when they think of me is, and write that on that little strip of paper. The word I want others to conjure when they think of me is. And that little piece of paper gets rolled up, and you take the cork off and pop it in your bottle. And you'll notice on your bottle, and if you don't have it with you, you'll notice it when you get it. There's an exterior key, which is your key to unlocking hearts and minds of other people for the world. And there's an interior key, which is your key to opening your own heart and mind. Roll that word up, pop it in that bottle, and then think about, in the future, doesn't have to be today, in the future, from somewhere in your life, grabbing some sacred soil, some dirt, some sand, something that means something specific to you, that resonates to you, that matters to you, that is an appropriate place for your key to your heart and mind to nestle. And you're going to plant your key and that word that you want the world to think about. You're planting that key in that dirt. For me, quite honestly, I'm going to take this bottle to Champ Camp and I'm going to pull some dust from the Gaga pit, because for me, that's sacred soil. That's one of my favorite places in the whole wide world. It could be the beach, it could be your own garden, it could be anywhere that you want, but just kind of this ritual is for you. It could be 3 years from now when you go on vacation to London, and but it doesn't have to be something that you do right away. You can plant your own seeds anytime you want, but just kind of ritualize that with your key to the outside world, to opening hearts and minds, which is tied to the outside of the bottle, and your key to your own heart and mind inside, with the word that you want other people to think of when they think of you.